Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band podcast. I'm your host, Benedictine. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. If you are already a listener, welcome back. Glad you're joining us again. And if you got any value out of these past episodes, then please go to Apple Podcast or your podcast app of choice and leave us a review there. 5 stars would be appreciated, and like a couple of nice sentences about the show. This helps us reach more people like you and help more people like you. And we really, really appreciate that help. Now, if you are stuck trying to record your next record, or if you hit a roadblock, you have some basic knowledge, but you maybe don't know, maybe you're overwhelmed by all of the content that's available online, or maybe you've done some recordings in the past and you're not quite happy with it, but you can't put your finger on what's wrong, then go to the selfrecordingband.com/call and book a free first one-on-one call with me so I can take a listen, give you a step-by-step action plan, show you what I would improve about the recordings, maybe where the bottlenecks are, and then you can go and implement that roadmap on your own or together with me. But either way, you walk away with a plan, with more clarity, with feedback. I would be happy to talk about your music and to meet you in person. So go to the selfrecordingband.com/call and let's have that first free one-on-one call. And as always, I'm here today with my friend and co-host, Malcolm Owen Flood. Hello, buddy. How are you?
Hey, man. I'm great. How are you?
I'm great, too. Had a great weekend.
Fantastic.
Yeah, all good.
Dude, I went for a night mountain run last night. So Benny and I both trail run, as most of you probably know by now because we won't shut up about it. But I went for one with my buddy and bandmate, the bass player, Sean from Band of Rascals. We went for a trail run and had headlamps, and it was so awesome and cool. I would never do it alone. It would have been terrifying.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm glad you said you were with a buddy out there.
Yeah, we were totally in like cougar country too. So it was like, I don't know if this is even smart, but we're having a good time.
Oh, that sounds great. Why the night run?
Just he has a young child, and that was when his daughter would be asleep. So that's when we could get out. Yeah. When your friends start having children, you start planning your life around that schedule.
Oh yeah, for
as
sure.
I'm sure you know.
100%. I don't know why that is. I mean, I know why it is, probably because I've watched too many crappy horror movies when I was too young. I'm totally terrified alone in the woods at night. That's like really, I don't know. Some people can do that. I can't. And I've stopped watching movies like that quite a few years ago, actually, because I can't handle it. And still, I'm having problems with that. Like it's to the point where right now, my wife and we're watching Wednesday, the series on Netflix. You know, the Addams Family. Yeah, exactly. And it's not really scary. Like this is not a horror movie, but still, this is enough to make me terrified again when I'm out in the woods. So,
giant-eyed monster that's going to rip you apart. Spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know, man. I admire people who can just do that. I mean, if you're with a buddy, it's okay, but on my own, no way.
I had another exciting thing, actually. I can't go into too much detail, but if you're watching the podcast version, I'm wearing a hat that says Fleet Divers, I think, on it.
I was about to ask you about that.
It's a cool hat, right? I love it. I got it for free. It was a documentary working with a unit from the Navy, and they're essentially the bomb squad, if you've seen the movie Hurt Locker or anything like that, but they also do it underwater. So they'll like dive and defuse bombs and set stuff off. And there's total badasses. It was crazy. A super exciting gig. I'm not really allowed to talk about anything beyond that, unfortunately, because there was all sorts of stuff. They were like, don't record that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But it was so fun. So much fun. I'm just totally jacked up. It was like, what a cool gig. Got on the water with them. So fun.
Really cool. This is a scary thing too. Anything underwater is kind of scary, I think, or can be.
Yeah, and add in bombs.
Yeah.
Double terrifying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like an amazing thing to do. So, that was the picture that I saw. I think you posted where you were on. It looked like a boat or something. Was that the one?
Yeah, that was from that gig.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
yeah, exactly. Head to my Instagram to check that out, folks.
Yeah. I was really, when I saw that picture, I was thinking like, how is your back doing after a year or 2 or 3 or whatever, however long you were doing that for now? Like
with that giant bag on it?
Yeah, with that giant bag. And I was immediately thinking like, do you have to do something about that, or is it okay? Like, does it hurt already? Do you have to train a lot, or I don't know.
I think my back feels better than ever doing that compared to sitting in a chair most of the time, like doing studio work. Yeah, surprisingly great. The harness I have is really nice and does take a lot of the weight. So it's not as bad as it looks, but definitely got to stretch and maintain some fitness for sure.
Yeah, it looked like it. Well, amazing.
Yeah.
I wish I could be more outside while working. So that's
Yeah, mixing outside. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but
No.
we'll get there. That's coming.
yeah.
I have no idea how we're going to segue those two topics into this episode, but
I don't know. My original plan was, but like we already talked about it before the episode, and it's so fascinating to me that there's the danger of going down another rabbit hole. But my original plan was to talk about the AI stuff that I'm so fascinated by at the moment, and then segue from that to like the future of music production, because the whole AI thing is what kept me awake these past couple of nights.
Right.
Because it's so fascinating. And
that's a way better segue than mountain running and bombs. So
yeah.
I should let you go.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about it. It's just wild. It's crazy. And I've spent some time experimenting with the chatbot GPT thing and some AI art that a lot of people are posting now online, and I just dabbled with it too. And tried a couple of more advanced things, and it's like fascinating, and my mind won't stop thinking about it, and it's kind of crazy. Anyway, this is we'll see. Maybe there's going to be some sort of episode in the future once I figured out a few more things that you can do with it. But for now, we're definitely talking about the future as well, and we are talking about the future, or like the near future of music production. So we talk about the fact that 2022 is coming to an end, and so we wanted to take a look at the music production landscape and how it's going to evolve in 2023 and beyond, in our opinion. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball or anything like that, but we can make assumptions, and we can share our observations and what we think is going to happen. Because the reason why I wanted to do this episode is that recording and releasing music, as we all know, is more accessible than ever already. And more than 60, like that is like also fascinating. More than 60,000 songs are uploaded to Spotify every single day. 60,000 every day. So which is completely crazy and very cool, because apparently there's no gatekeepers anymore and everybody can do it, which is great, of course. So the tools and the knowledge are out there, and if you're just a little talented and tech savvy, there's like zero excuse, I'd say, for having a bad sounding record out these days, And of course, some talent is required. You got to know how to operate some basic tech and stuff, so that is required. But other than that, like everything's at your fingertips, right? And a lot of people are using it. That's why 60,000 songs are being completed and uploaded to Spotify every day. Yeah, and I think that if you have something to say as an artist, and if you are a creative person and you make music, then your music absolutely matters, and it deserves to sound great, so your message can be heard, right? So, and I don't, as I said, I don't think there's any excuse for having a bad sounding recording or something that doesn't connect. Like the tools are there. And now I wanted to talk about what you can do to stand out from this massive amount of songs that are being released. I wanted to talk about why it is that still so many recordings don't sound great despite the tools being there, why it seems that only a few people have really figured it out, and what we think you can do to like increase the chances of like, maybe not necessarily getting heard, but if people hear you, that they will remember it, and that it will connect with them, right? We can't really do anything about you being discovered. This is a whole different sort of topic. I think it's more about marketing and a lot of other things too. But when it comes to what your music does to someone who discovers it and listens to it, I think that's what we have control over. And that's what I wanted to talk about, what you can do to stand out and make sure that people will remember your music, and how that might have changed this past year or these past years, and what's going to happen in 2023 and beyond. Yeah, this is the idea for the episode. Now, let's start by taking an honest look at where the bar currently is. And I don't know, what would you say, Malcolm? Like, what's the quality? What is expected right now from any sort of recording, regardless of DIY or professional? Or is there even a difference,
Not necessarily. No, there isn't necessarily a difference anymore. It's just, there is certainly a quality. And I think that quality will probably vary from genre to genre. Maybe not quality, but aesthetic. And if you look at kind of who's leading that genre, you'll be able to kind of figure out, okay, this level of quality and this type of sound is what's expected of me if I'm competing in the same genre, right? So I think like a really good first step for defining like where the bar is, like our working title for this episode is Where's the Bar for 2023 and Beyond, or AKA How Good is Good Enough?
Yeah.
To go and find a recently released song in your genre that you love and that the rest of the people that like that genre seem to love as well. So a popular song, I would argue, a successful one that's, people are catching on with. and analyze it and think, okay, does my stuff compete on this level? It's easy. I think most people, when I just said that, were probably thinking, okay, how it sounds, but also on a songwriting level and creative level as well. It's not just how it sounds that we're talking about necessarily. It's like, where is the songwriting of our genre at? Where's the arrangement at? And what is the recording style and quality at as well? All of those things are going to essentially equate to the bar for how good is good enough in 2023.
Yes, I agree. And I want to say that it might sound weird to some people that we're talking about, we're using terms like compete, or like when we're talking about art, we know that it's not a competition, and it's not about being better than other artists, or how would you even measure that?
Very good point.
But the one thing that is true is you're not competing against the artist in terms of who's better, but you're all competing for the attention of an audience. And so it's no competition, like, as I said, like, you can't even measure that. But the audience has only limited time to dedicate to music, and they will only listen to a certain amount of music and a certain amount of artists, and you're definitely competing for their attention. So everybody, I think, wants their music to be heard, and that's what we mean, I think, when we say, like, compare your music to what's out there and how it competes, because they can only listen to one song at a time, and they can only listen to so much music a day or a week or a year. And if you want to be on their playlist, if you want to be in their car and on their earbuds and stuff, then there's almost no way, I think, around comparing yourself to other stuff that's out there, in a way, just to figure out why some stuff works and other stuff doesn't work, maybe, or just to get a feel for, is this going to be something that will grab people's attention, knowing what else is out there and how good that stuff is.
Yeah, I like to imagine the scenario of the song that you've chosen to kind of compare against coming on the radio, and then your song comes on right after it.
Yeah.
What do people think when they have to hear it in sequence like that? That's kind of why we use the words compete and compare.
Yeah.
Because if you're hoping to be in that spot, they're going to be heard together. So it kind of has to work.
And when you say hoping to be in that spot, that brings us to the next point. Like, you have to be clear about your goals, because not everybody wants to be on the radio. Your goals might be different.
Yeah.
And so I think comparing only makes sense if you know what you actually want. Like, if you don't want to be on the radio, you don't have to compare yourself to stuff that's on the radio. Depends on your goals. As we often said in other episodes too, do you want to be on a certain playlist? Do you want to tour with a certain band? Do you want to be known in a certain scene or niche or whatever? Compare yourself or your music to whatever other people do who share the same type of goals, or who want to achieve the same things, whatever that is. But be clear about those goals, because you might be comparing yourself to stuff that's irrelevant for what you want to do.
Totally. Fun train of thought. You could actually go the opposite way with this, I think, and be like, okay, this is what the successful stuff in our niche is doing. Why don't we try and totally break that mold? That's a totally valid goal. That could be awesome. Like, keep that in mind as well.
Yes, absolutely. Especially, I think, as a DIY or like an independent artist, you have a certain amount of freedom that some artists don't have. If you're not tied to any sort of contracts, you're not on a strict schedule, you're not required to deliver something a certain way, then you can experiment and you can try things like that. And the worst case scenario is that it doesn't resonate, and then you could try something else, But I think your worst case scenario is not as bad as the worst case scenario for some major artists who can't afford to make something that doesn't work. So they might not be willing to take as much of a risk as you can, maybe, with your music. So I think that's an advantage. You can be really bold. You can try to do something completely different and just see how it works, because if it doesn't work, nobody loses their job, right? So that's actually an advantage, I think. So you can be bold. You can try and do similar things, but you can also take a risk and do something completely different. But be aware of what's out there and find your spot in that niche, or, I'd say. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's also brings us to the next point here, which is whatever you do, I think more and this is getting even more important in the future, I think. You got to be you got to be authentic. You have to have the finger on the pulse, and you know what's like current, what people like, and all of that. But still, I think authentic art, real art, human art, like back to the whole AI thing and stuff, I don't know how long it will take until we hear like really computer generated music. And even the music out now is already sometimes so structured and so, I don't know, sometimes generic, depending on the genre. So I think authentic music, personality, emotion, all of that will always win and is getting even more important in the future because the quality, the sonics is kind of expected. That's not what's going to set you apart. Like everybody can do that with a certain amount of education and the right tools and stuff. That's accessible. But like what connects on a human emotional level, sort of, that's what's going to set you apart. So I think, yeah, you want to be you want to be authentic, and you want to be real and relatable. I think that's really, really important. Even when you try to do something that's current or that's popular, still try to make it authentic and believable and relatable. I think that's huge, and even more so in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right. If we're predicting the future, I think that's going to be paramount to having a successful connection with an audience, because things will get more computery.
Yeah, for sure.
Without a doubt.
For sure. Yeah. So also one thing that I've always find interesting when you look back at the past years and decades and like the trends and things that have come and gone, I think you got to be aware of trends and of current aesthetics, but you should avoid sounding dated in the future. There's some songs, when you listen to those, you clearly know when they were produced in a way, because there's some giveaways in some songs that make you think, oh yeah, that's early mid 2000s metalcore or something, you know, or
Right,
there's
yeah,
certain things where you immediately know when this was created, and can be cool and like iconic, but more often than not, I think you want to avoid like making something dated. I think timeless stuff is better in most cases. I don't know. That's just at least I find it worth thinking about it, you know?
Yeah, it's worth considering for sure. I wouldn't want to sound like a 90s band if if I could help it.
Yeah. It's hard to judge though, or to tell. Like what would you say for now, for example? What could be something people are doing now that could sound dated in the future? Because it's really hard to tell in the moment. Like after the fact, it's easier.
Oh, very hard. Yeah. I think there's maybe some reverb styles in the last 5 years that are like, you know, I use Valhalla Vintage Verb all the time, but like the default setting has a sound and people use it a lot.
Agree. There's some arrangement or writing stuff, like some in pop music, some background choir elements with like a long reverb and like some shouting of a I don't know how to say that. I would have to give you examples, but maybe you know what you mean. There's sometimes these sort of background gang vocal shouts or choirs in some pop songs that sound pretty similar every single time they come up. This is something in pop music that has been done a lot, like oftentimes combined with very minimal arrangements, but then these huge vocals and backing vocals that come in.
Right.
Yeah, maybe pay attention to what's been on the radio for the past 1 or 2 years, and maybe you discover your own patterns that you want to avoid because everybody's doing that, I think.
Yeah.
The next part is, I'd say, listen to a variety of music and more than anything, let your life and experience inspire your art, and trust your gut feeling in a way when you come up with song ideas. What I mean by that is some people are so into one specific sound or like genre or type of music, and they only listen to that. They only surround themselves with people of that niche, that scene or whatever. And they are only inspired by those types of bands. And as a result, their songs are kind of always the same, or not really inspired, not really unique. And I'd say maybe try different things. Maybe try listening to completely different styles of music, and maybe try paying more attention to what happens to you every single day, like the experiences you have. It's an awareness sort of, or like a mindfulness sort of thing, where you really pay attention to what happens around you. You pay attention to other music, to other types of art or whatever, and let that inspire your music. And then trust your gut feeling if you think that you have a good idea, even if it's like outside of what you normally do. Sometimes you just have to go with the first instinct, and if you have a good idea, even if it seems scary, maybe just go for it and try and make something of it. I think a lot of people should just be more open to different kinds of influences outside of what they usually do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, because again, being unique in the future is gonna set you apart more than anything, I think, by definition. But I mean, being real and authentic is what we want. Okay, so another thing here, and that's the other points under that in that category are all kind of similar. So yes, there are tried and true songwriting, arrangement, and production techniques. Yes, there is certain things that are proven to work, but still you want to find your own identity. That's kind of all in the same. That's all the same thing, basically. We already talked about that. But the next part here is also really important to me. And that is, I think we all need to become better musicians and songwriters, and not just producers, mixers, and engineers. Because again, the tools are all there. There are amazing plugins that do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. There's a lot of tools you can use to make stuff sound great. You might be creative and have good ideas, but then there's the execution when it comes to actually playing and delivering it. And I think being a really good musician, but also a songwriter, is also something that not many people are that, And out of these 60,000 songs that are uploaded to Spotify, there's only a small percentage that sounds great. And out of this small percentage that sounds great, there's even fewer songs that are actually also played well and performed well, And this is going to set you apart for sure, because so many people can't really. There's some. I'm not saying that overall it got worse, because there are some very young musicians who are crazy good. But also, I think there are a lot of people who think you don't have to be a good musician anymore. And and I think that's going to set you apart for sure. If you can actually play your instrument well and deliver emotional performances, that's going to be required at some point, I think, even more than it is.
Yeah, that's a really cool thought, because the recording part is the part that's accessible to anyone now, or almost anyone, where it's very affordable to get the tools you need. It's never been more affordable, and it's the software is very intuitive. It's easy to learn. There's lots of resources on how to learn, like what we do here on the Self-Recording Band podcast. We simplify and educate on how to do the recording process. But the playing part, we can't really just grab the guitar from your hands over the internet and make it, hold that chord in tune. Like, we can't do that. We can't make you change your strings. I mean, we can't tell you how to hit your snare drum. I mean, well, we can tell you, but we can't make sure you're doing it. And like, that part's all on you. You have to take that part into your own hands and become really proficient with your instrument. Practice not only playing well, but recording well, there is a difference, as we've mentioned in different episodes. And it kind of does also tie into like why we recommend outside mixing, because like the playing and the mixing are the two hardest things to get right in the whole process. The recording is the easiest part. The making your instruments sound good on their own is also the easiest part. It's not rocket science. You just experiment until it sounds cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the actual performing it, that part just takes time and practice. And mixing is kind of the same, where it takes years to become a professional mixer. So it's kind of like, what we're talking about just kind of sums up our whole platform here. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, same. And and ironically, if you are into like these little human mistakes and like natural organic productions, minimal editing and stuff, this is even more true. Because if you can't play well, a lot of processing has to be done, a lot of editing has to be done, a lot of fixing has to be done to make it work. But if you can play really well with emotion, with a great feel, great timing, you can have tiny little, mistakes and things in there, or like not even mistakes, but like, imperfections. You can have them in there because it will still sound great. They can even be like intentional, or it can be part of your style. But this only works if the performance is good, if you can play well. If you can't play well, the mistakes will sound like mistakes and you have to fix them. So if you're into natural performances and productions and want to keep the takes as much as possible, then you have to be even better at your instrument. And if you are not as good, more processing is required. So, yeah.
The only drum performances I've ever recorded that I have not touched at all for editing, like just like one takers, have been the best drummers I've ever recorded. Yeah. It's not the other way around. It's not like, it's obviously that way, but it's like they made it sound so perfect that it's human enough. I mean, it's always going to be human enough. That's never going to be the problem.
Yes.
It's going to be trying to get it to be professional enough. And the best drummers in the world can pull that off and get it past that bar of being professional enough. So yeah, the human thing isn't a problem with most instruments. You're going to have mistakes. So it's about being able to nail the perfect threshold enough.
Yeah, because what happens is, and this is really interesting, if you are able to play a perfect take so that you don't have to touch it, it's going to be perfect, but not really perfect, because as you said, it's not always going to be human. But what happens if you are not able to play a perfect take, then we have to edit it, and that is going to result in something that's either not perfect enough, so it sounds amateur and like a mistake, or it's going to end up sounding too perfect because it's very hard to get it to exactly that sweet spot where it's corrected, like it feels correct, but like still human. So oftentimes these edited performances end up sounding too perfect, while a perfect performance is perfect, but just imperfect enough. That's the thing, because it's very hard to recreate that in editing. So yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing I think is you got to be smart about your gear purchases and what really, and get the stuff that really matters, because there's so much stuff available and all of it is getting more and more affordable. There's so many options. You can spend so much money on all these things. I'd say more than anything, invest in yourself and get the tools you really need to get the job done. Be careful there. There's always a sale. There's always some exciting new tool. You're bombarded with marketing messages around gear and plugins and all of that. And most of the stuff won't make your recordings much better. There's some stuff that really helps, but not all of it. So I'd say focus on sort of the hierarchy of gear, like what's really important, what's not so important.
Yeah.
And then more than anything, if you want to spend money, spend it to invest in yourself and improve your skills and become a better musician, as we said, a better songwriter, a better engineer, a better producer. That will really set you apart. That will really make a difference, because everybody can buy a $29 Waves plugin, but not everybody's willing to invest a lot of money in themselves and get really good at something. So if you want to stand out and make good sounding stuff, then that is the much better investment compared to plugins and gear and all of that.
Totally. That conversation and topic is actually going to come up in our next episode. We never do this. We never foreshadow our next episode.
Yeah, true.
But we're going to be talking about how communities and how Benny and I met, actually, because we're both huge proponents of and fans of investing in ourselves, personal development and skill development, and how doing that has resulted in us all sitting here today listening and talking about audio. So there's a lot to it. So click subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already. You'll get that one.
Totally. Yeah, and the next one on the list here, there's a reason for why I put it on this list. I put on this list that you should have a process that allows for consistent output and lets you focus on the fun, creative part. And why I put that there is I think the album cycle sort of is already a thing of the past in a lot of genres, and a lot of artists are doing consistent content, consistent releases, a single a month or an EP every couple of months or whatever your schedule is. But consistent output tends to work better for many artists compared to doing an album every 2 years or 3 years or something like that. And no matter what your opinion is on that, I think even if you do an album cycle, you should have something in between, because otherwise, it's just hard to keep people's attention, and you got to put something out, I think, as an artist these days, even if it's just collaborations, remixes, acoustic versions, whatever, something in between your main releases, or you do the consistent release schedule thing. And I think it's a requirement to be able to put out stuff quickly, to come up with an idea and then to finish that idea quickly so that you can release it. I think you can't really afford to, unless you're doing it for yourself and you enjoy the long process, that's always okay. But if you're more ambitious and you want to have consistent output, you can't really afford to take forever to turn an idea into something that you can release. And that requires you to have a process and a setup that you know very well, that you feel comfortable with, and that enables you to have this consistent type of output, and that lets you completely focus on your ideas, on the creative stuff, and not worry so much about setting up the gear and all the technical stuff and all these things. So if you can be efficient with the stuff that just needs to be done and focus more on the creative stuff, that is going to be a big one, because the people who are not able to do that and who take forever to get an idea out, it's going to be way, way harder, especially if you're a hobbyist, if it's not your main job, if you only have limited time. So, and there are some people who are really good at that, who with very minimal amount of time, they are able to produce fantastic sounding things and even good looking videos and all of that, and they just put it out and it seems so effortless, while others take forever to just record a demo, So I think being able to do that and figuring that out is huge, I think, in the future.
Yeah, that's been important and becoming more and more important, I think. And lucky for you is that if you embrace that kind of getting content out quickly workflow, you're going to get to take advantage of the software that is way more affordable than the traditional route of big block of time into a studio and going that route, and you're going to learn skills that just make you quicker and quicker. It's just so worth investing in learning how to program drums, for example. What a huge time saver. Proven professional results at this point. I could point to just so many releases that are programmed drums that people totally connect with. The argument that you can't connect to a song that doesn't have a human drummer is just gone.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this is actually also, again, a good segue to the next bullet point here, which is focus on what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, or else you won't stick to it. So if drums are your bottleneck and you're not good at playing drums, you don't have access to a great room, you can't record real drums, then maybe you should just focus on writing great songs, playing the guitar or singing or whatever you're good at, and program drums or get a session drummer to play on your songs, and not even worry about the drum recording part. I think the result will be so much better, because if you try to do everything because you think you have to become good at everything and you have to do everything yourself, the outcome is oftentimes mediocre. But if you focus on what's your personal superpower and then find ways to get the rest done. I think that's going to lead to better results. And drum programming is a perfect example. It's way easier to learn how to program drums than it is to get the room to do it, the mics, learn how to actually do it, tuning, the setup, the playing, all of that. It's so much more complicated than learning how to program drums. And so why not focus on the stuff you actually enjoy doing, you're already good at, get even better at that so you get exceptional, and then have a fun process that you will also stick to. I think that's the way better option. And there's always the outliers who can't figure it all out, who can do everything after a while. But like, don't assume you are a unicorn like that, because most people don't stick to things if it gets really, really, really hard and if it takes a long time until you see results. So most of us will just give up before we ever get there if you try to do everything, so yeah.
To add to that, I think it's also worth saying that just because you can doesn't mean you should. Is your time and money spent better elsewhere? Like if you don't have a great vocal mic, and vocals are important, and you're going to do that on your own in this scenario, why are you buying like 12 channels of cheap drum mics and a bigger interface to do drums so you can have that, and then finding a space and soundproofing it so you can actually record the drums? Like, that's just a huge waste of time and effort when you could have just had it done already. There's better things for you to focus on, so you don't have to spend years developing a drum skill set and gear locker, because you're not going to be happy with those cheap drum mics probably in the end. You're going to upgrade it again. It'll just go on. You'll keep spending money forever.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Totally.
Benny and I are still doing it.
We're still doing it, and in some ways we're also going backwards. Or at least I have, because when I decided to stop recording, I could finally sell some of my preamps that I didn't no longer use, and mics and all of that. And so now I have a leaner setup again, but the stuff that I have is of higher quality because I only focus on a certain part of it.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
This is exactly the point.
I just found 2 Sennheiser Tom mics in my shelf in my studio, and I was like, why do I still have these? I have a 2-channel interface.
So true.
I can't record drums. Why would I have Tom mics?
I have some Audix mics here too still, and I don't know.
They're hard to let go of.
Yeah, they are for sure. Yeah. So if anyone needs Audix mics, let me know.
yeah. Benny and I are flogging gear, even though we told you to just not buy drum gear, because that's probably not something you need to do.
Exactly. No, probably not. All right. So next point here, also we're going to talk about that more in depth on our next episode. So again, kind of a spoiler here, but find partners and collab opportunities so you can combine your superpowers. I think this is going to be even more important in the future because, first of all, collaborations work really well because of how music is promoted and marketed these days. You have twice the reach. You can team up with people with a bigger audience than you, and you can reach way more people that way. You can multiply your reach, and that's part of the argument. But the other argument is that if you bring together a group of people with different skills and combine all these superpowers, the results are oftentimes amazing. And it's so much fun too. And in a world where there's the danger of being completely isolated now because we can do everything at home. We don't have to leave the computer or our phone. We don't have to go outside to get things done. And I think it's even better now to have, or even more important, also for our mental health, for being inspired, staying inspired as an artist and all of that, to just be connected with other people. It's easy to do it online, even better in person. But I think really cool, inspired art and things that people are really enjoying is going to come from collaborations of different artists with different perspectives, different life experiences, different superpowers and skills who combine that to create something really, really cool. And I'm seeing this in my community right now, in the coaching community that I have, the Syndicate, where, people hire each other to, we have a guitar teacher in there and somebody else hired him to give him guitar lessons. And then we have that's not necessarily collaborating on a song, but then we have another group of people where one is playing bass, another one is playing drums, and one is the producer mixer. And, so they're combining their superpowers and coming up with new creative things. And I just love to see that. And I think that's going to be more and more important in the future. So if you can build a community around you, reach out to other people and collab with other artists and see what comes out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, more on that coming in the next episode. So I'm going to save my tidbits for that.
Okay, cool. The other thing is we've talked about the consistent release schedule. There's also something to be said about just completing and finishing stuff, even if you don't even release it. So I think getting in the habit of finishing songs regularly, writing songs, recording ideas, and not overthinking it, but just keep writing. I think that's important too. You don't have to release them, but you have to to build the muscle and find your unique style and voice, because sometimes you don't even know what you're really good at or what your unique voice and style as an artist is until you've done it often enough and figure it out. So yeah, I think in the future, as we said, unique, authentic, real artists are going to win or are going to be popular or even more popular. And so you have to take time to figure out who you actually are as an artist. What's your identity? What do you want to sound like? What are you good at? And the only way, in my opinion, to really do that is to just keep writing, to just practice that and to have a lot of output, capture a lot of crappy ideas until you come up with a good one. It's like that. It's like an author who writes, so many authors have said that they write 100 crappy pages until they arrive at a good one, and that they start with a very raw draft and then they edit it even more and more and more until it's like the final thing. And I think you should do something else. Writer's block is just saying you stopped writing, and just keep on writing. And building that muscle.
Absolutely.
And capturing
you just got to embrace the suck, I think, is something we said a few times on this podcast. Just if it's sucking, oh well. Hopefully the next one doesn't.
Yeah, totally. And you got to be aware there are a lot of artists who just do that, who just keep writing consistently and constantly, who always are recording things, who are building that muscle and who are getting really good because of that. And again, it's not a competition, but you are in a way still competing for the audience's attention. And you have the choice. Like, you can either not do it and hope that the one thing you record this year is going to be the thing, or you can drastically increase your chances of getting heard by just recording a lot and writing a lot and doing what these very creative, very ambitious people do who are building that muscle, So,
yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
The other one, I don't know, again, a community thing probably, Malcolm, right? Like the get feedback and keep that feedback loop short. So don't do it in isolation. Don't write in a vacuum, I'd say, or record and produce in a vacuum.
Yeah, other people, context, it's good. You'll learn from other people by collaborating with them. You'll pick up new tricks, styles, speed hacks, oh, I didn't know I could just do it that way. Now I'm way quicker at comping vocals in Logic or whatever, just find ways to learn by collaborating with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is cool too and interesting too, I think. This is be okay with the fact that it takes time to get good. And every overnight success, quote unquote, overnight success, has been years in the making before we hear about it. That's almost always the case. And why I put that on the list is I bet that, I don't know if there's stats on this, but I bet that most of these 60,000 songs that are uploaded each day on Spotify, most of the people writing these songs, they're never going to release a second one. I bet that the majority of these people upload that one song and then they don't do another one ever again. Yeah. It's the same with podcasts. I've seen the statistics about podcasts where, I don't know, like 80% of new podcasters or so do one episode and then they stop. Like only 20% or so make it to the second episode, and then it drops off even steeper and very steep.
Totally, yeah. Not many people stick with it. So just by sticking with it, you're beating the odds.
Yes.
It's incredible when you think about it that way. I heard a podcast just recently about like how there's like an average number of videos posted on YouTube per amount of subscribers kind of thing. So it's just like, well, if you get to like 400 videos, you're probably going to be around this number at least, because that's the average. So not at least, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's just kind of fascinating. It's just like most people won't get there. So they can't expect to have results that exceed that average number.
Yeah, exactly. And so that, as you said, you increase the odds just by sticking to it. And if you release the first song and it's not perfect, and that doesn't matter. Like just know that it takes time and that most first things are not perfect, and just keep releasing your music, keep putting out music, keep putting out records or songs or whatever. And just by sticking around, more and more people will discover you and you'll get better, and you just increase the odds of being heard.
Yeah. And like you said, if you're doing it right, you're going to get better, which means that you're not going to be super happy with whatever you did first, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you spend 10 years getting that first one ready and then you release it, it's perfect. Another 10 years from now, you're going to be like, man, I could have done that better. Like, so don't wait for better, because it's always moving. It's just, there's nothing to wait for.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, like many overnight successes have actually been long in the making, and it looks like an overnight success because they might have changed direction or genre or rebranded or whatever. But if you dig deeper, you always find a pretty long history of other things they've tried before that. And so that could be true for you too. I just watched the Taylor Swift documentary, and I talked to a coaching student of mine about her because I find her story is pretty fascinating too. A lot of people only discovered her when she became sort of a pop sensation, but if you look at her country career and how young she was when she started and what she's done before, it's incredible how long that journey has been and how much work went into that. And
totally, it's always like that.
Yeah. Now, the next one is interesting, Malcolm. You put it there. Maybe just go ahead and explain that point because I've never thought about it like that, but you're totally right, and I can see where this is going.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the same everywhere in the world, but in Canada, at least, and I would assume many parts of the world because most of the world went through similar things over the last few years, but inflation has been out of control. So things have gotten more expensive. Like everything has gotten much more expensive, and wages haven't necessarily gone up. So things are tighter, and recording was already expensive to pull off. So what I'm noticing happening is that more people are finally embracing more affordable ways of recording. And that was already happening, but I think it's accelerating now just out of necessity. So like artists using things like programmed drums or MIDI packs to get their drums started at least is a trend that I'm personally having happen more often, where I went years with literally doing no mixes with programmed drums. Now I'm doing, usually it's programmed drums, which is awesome. They sound great, and they can be pulled off in a really believable way. Another trend is, of course, using amp sims with just recording a DI. A DI is something anybody can pull off. It's not rocket science. And then a mixer like myself can then reamp it using an amp sim or my Kemper or whatever. But it's just these are incredibly efficient, fast, and affordable ways to record. And I think because of inflation, people are just saving money and doing it that way. And I think that's not going to change. So it's I think for 2023, making sure you know how to do that so that you can continue recording if you can't afford to get into a studio to do drums, for example, very important.
100% agreed. Absolutely fantastic point. And I think that means that even if you're listening to this and maybe you do your own demos and you write, but you've never really thought about doing the actual production yourself because you were thinking I will always go into a studio, I will always hire professionals. That's good if you can do that. But even if you're that person, there might be a situation at some point where you can't do that anymore. And we hope that this will not be the case. And of course, it's always good to hire pros and to go to studios for everything. That's the ideal situation. But I think, as you said, Malcolm, things are already pretty crazy and inflation has gone through the roof the past couple of years. And you might find yourself in a situation where you can no longer afford to be spending a lot of time in the studio each year to do all these things. And then if you haven't built those skills and you have to start from zero, you are way behind the people who are already investing in themselves and learning those skills. And when you learn those skills, you might discover that you actually prefer it. You might discover that you actually like it. Or parts of it. You might discover that you still go to the studio for drums maybe, or you still hire a mixer or mastering engineer, but maybe you enjoy recording the vocals on your own because of the creative freedom and whatever you want to, or your own schedule and all of those things. So maybe you discover parts of the process that you actually enjoy doing and you actually prefer to do it yourself compared to going to a studio, and so you can save money and enjoy the benefits of doing it yourself. So even if you're not planning on doing that anytime soon, there might be a situation where you have to, and you might even discover that you enjoy it. So I think it's, as you said, Malcolm, absolutely a good idea to invest in yourself and to learn those skills as a musician, to just make yourself future-proof and to discover these more affordable but still really good sounding ways of recording music. Yeah, getting these skill sets. Yeah, I think that's almost. Absolutely. I don't know that it's almost part of being a musician these days. That you have to learn at least some of it. I think, even if it's just for demos and pre-pro, but probably even more in the future. It's almost required that at least one person in the band knows how to do it.
Yeah. It's totally worth getting good at. It's actually something I'm gonna be getting good at myself because I've just been mixing it. I've never really had to do much of it at all. But lately, I'm finding for YouTube stuff, it's I kind of need to actually get efficient at this. So I'm in the same boat. Here we go.
Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean exactly? What would you want to learn?
Well, for me, if I want to make a audio example and I need some drums, I'm not going to go into a studio, book it, and just to make a YouTube video. I just need to whip something out. So I'm we've got our Room Sound Kurt Ballou kit, which is amazing. And check out that previous episode with Dave Piatek if you haven't already. But I'm like using that to, quickly just whip up a drum beat, or using a MIDI groove and just throwing that in the session, writing a quick guitar riff to it. Now I've got an audio example I can mess with. So it's just like the quicker I can make amazing sounding drums that I can use in my video, the better. So it's just like all about speed for me.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you mean that. So getting more comfortable with the sims and the program drums and all of that yourself. Yeah, totally. But I mean in general, that just the skill of being able to just record yourself and do a lot of the production steps yourself is almost required these days for a musician. Because
yes.
That's what I meant. Because you don't know for how long you're going to be able to afford studios and a lot of studio time. And if you're ever in a situation where, and it doesn't even have to be because of money, it might be time, it might be something like another lockdown or whatever. Like you don't know. Like these past years have been pretty crazy and have shown that we don't know what's happening next year. It's like so unpredictable and crazy things can happen. And if you set yourself up to be independent no matter what, and to be able to produce great music from home if you need to, that's always going to be an advantage compared to the other people who are completely relying on other people to produce their records. I think.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So and this brings me to, again, we said it before, investing in yourself, learning things is more important than anything else. So I think if you can get mentorship from people who can help you get there 10 times faster without the frustration and the headaches, without the overwhelm, without the conflicting information on the internet, this is like, it's crazy what that does for you. And this should be top priority if your music is important to you. No gear purchase could ever be more important or a better investment than investing in your skills. And really good education and personal mentorship and coaching and stuff like that. Things like the coaching program that we offer here, these are not cheap either. I'm not saying that they are cheap, but it's still way more affordable than going to a studio for a full-length record. If you go to a proper studio with real pros and a great room and all of that, and you spend enough time there to do it right, and it's really a lot of money. Not many people are aware how much that actually costs if you do it properly. And if you can spend a fraction of that, even though that is still not going to be super cheap, but it's a fraction of a really professional production. And if you can spend that and then get personal mentorship and guidance and learn everything you need to know so you can do it on your own, you can use these skills over and over and over again. So you're not only saving that money once on your next production, but every single time you produce something, you're saving money basically, because you can use those skills and the setup you build in the process. You can use that over and over again and set yourself up for the consistent output that we were talking about. And you might still hire out parts of it, but still it's going to be way cheaper than doing everything at a studio. And so don't look at these investments in yourself. Don't look at them as like very expensive costs, but they are really an investment because you want to have good quality music anyways. And either somebody else has to do it, which costs a lot of money, or you can do it. And if you do it, even with great education, it's always going to be cheaper. And you can actually, if you think about it like that, you can actually afford to get really good education because you're saving the money elsewhere. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to say here, because I think you can start with like cheap online courses, you can start with YouTube, you can start with that stuff, but that's only gonna get you so far. And once you start taking it seriously and really invest in yourself and really make it a priority to learn that stuff and get personal feedback and guidance, then it's that's where you're gonna see real progress. That's what everybody's done. Like, not that everybody has bought a coaching program, but everybody has either spent years and years and years of trial and error and a lot of headache and frustration, or they learned under somebody in another studio and got mentorship there, which is not impossible, but also not easy to do. Or they had mentorship because they paid a mentor or bought a program like that. But there's almost no other way. And I know of very, very few people, if any, who made it quickly by just watching YouTube or a cheap online course. That's going to get you a little, that's going to give you something, but it's not going to,
You're
what I want to say.
Like, that YouTube stuff is awesome. You're going to want to do that while you're doing your other training, right? I was one of those people that got to learn by interning at a studio. That was such a huge part of my education, but also watching stuff and especially trial and error as well. But having that person, Zach, my mentor, to be like, why did you do this? And tell me what I did wrong, which a YouTube video can't do, was, like, the mistakes I made are the best lessons I learned, of course. But you need somebody that can tell you that you made that mistake. Otherwise, you think you're good. You're just going to keep doing the same mistake over and over until you realize. So yeah, it's quicker.
Yes, for sure. And so yeah, once you realize that you want to have a good quality output anyways, you need that, then you just have to make a decision. Do you want to hire others to do it for you, or do you want to learn to do it yourself? Both are going to cost you money. The doing it yourself part is almost always going to be cheaper. And then there's other factors too, but like, don't think that not doing anything or just trying to figure it out yourself will get you there very fast. And don't think that you will be able to quote unquote compete with all those people who are already doing this. Like, this is not going to happen. So if that's okay for you and if it's just a hobby and you don't care about the quality, fine. But if you are ambitious and want to have something out there that people actually care about, you only have these two options. You can hire somebody who knows what they're doing, or you need to learn the skills. And that is not going to come for free in most cases too, or at least not free and quick. And so just make a decision, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, and if you want to start doing that, and if you want to learn about what that could look like, obviously you can go to the selfrecordingband.com/call and book a first completely free call with me so we can talk about what that could look like. There's no obligation to do anything or to buy anything. You can just grab the plan that I give you and implement it on your own, but we can at least talk about it, and like I can show you what that actually means. And yeah, I would be happy to talk to you about this. And this is only one of many options, but of course I want to mention it here because we do exactly that.
Yep. Hit them up. Free. Why not?
Yeah. Exactly. All right, let's wrap it up. So to sum it up, the bar is high.
Yes.
Yeah, you're competing for a limited amount of attention. There's a crap ton of music out there every single day. Most people won't stick to it. Most people will give up before they get good. If you can stick with it, if you can be consistent for a certain amount of time, if you invest in yourself, if you embrace doing it yourself and learning, then you can increase your chances of actually being heard. And and I think personality, unique music, and being able to just stick with it for a while and get better at it, that is what's gonna make you stand out in the future. And you don't just want to release one more song that nobody really hears and that's sounding just like anybody else,
Totally. Yeah, make this 2023 the year that you're actually consistently releasing music. You can't be a professional full-time musician if you're not providing music to the world. So let's make it happen, everyone.
Exactly. All right. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
See ya.